In this episode, we talk about what I would do if I had to start over today. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big change, big change. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Gregg Clunis, and in this episode, we are looking at a question I get quite often, actually, whether it's about the podcast or about starting over from scratch and sort of just creating content in general, working online. People ask pretty regularly what they should do if they're starting something right now. And it's funny because I don't think of myself as having sort of done anything yet. I know theoretically that's not true. I have a podcast, I have a book, I've got a YouTube channel, all of these things that I am actively doing. But that's the thing, right? I'm actively doing them. I haven't made it, whatever that actually means. And so I get the question a lot, and it's something that I think is a lot of fun to answer because I still sort of think of myself in this position. Like I'm doing actively all of the things that I'm going to recommend to you in this episode. So I know for a fact that it works. I know for a fact that's what I would do if everything just vanished tomorrow. And I recommend that you take the advice as well. Now, before we jump into it, just very, very quickly, be sure to take the survey. Head over to tinyleaps.fm/survey. That's tinyleaps.fm/survey. It's about 5 minutes. It'll help me to make better content for you in 2020, to find better brands for you in 2020. And you get entered for a chance to win one of 3 Amazon gift cards. So that's tinyleaps.fm/survey. Head over there now, take the quick survey, and let's get into the episode. So what would I do if I had to start over from scratch? What is the very first thing that I would? Well, for me, the thing that I remember most, so I've been, just for a little bit of context, I first started sort of trying to do things online back in 2009. Now, it was not what I'm doing now. It was like different things, but I first sort of got involved in the online entrepreneurship, online business, online money-making world back in 2009 as a senior in high school. And I actually got in because my cousin Mickey told me about it. Mikhail, I don't know which he goes by now that we're older, but whatever. He told me about this thing called affiliate marketing, where you could set up a blog and talk about a topic and attract some traffic and then link to all of these different products and take a percentage of the sale on those products. Now, this was super interesting to me at the time because I was also an avid World of Warcraft player. So all throughout high school and right at the end of middle school, and then a lot of it in college as well, really up until about 2 years ago, if I'm being totally honest. I played World of Warcraft pretty heavily. And so when he told me about this, I instantly thought, oh, here's this thing I love, this thing I'm spending all my time in, and I'm paying $15 a month for. What if I could make money from it? What if I could take this thing that I'm interested in and spending all this time on and turn it into actual dollars instead of it costing me money? And so I built a World of Warcraft blog. And fun fact for those of you who want to do this, I don't know why you would, but if you do, if you look hard enough, if you search my name on Google and you look hard enough, you can actually find some of the articles from back then. So if you feel like doing that, go for it. Send me a message on Instagram or in the Facebook group. It would be cool to see those. But obviously, for most of you who aren't going to do that, they are still up. And so I started this blog. I just decided, all right, I'm going to review different parts of the game, different game releases. I'm going to talk about leveling up fast. I'm going to review guides on how to level up fast. And then I'm going to link out to all these things and make a percentage of the sale if somebody buys through my link. And then in theory, this was a cool idea. Now, here's the thing. It didn't work. Now, why didn't it work? Because I didn't know what I was doing. I had this sort of vision of what it could be, but I didn't know just how difficult it actually is to build a blog, to maintain it, to create content regularly, to drive traffic to that content, to get discovered, to link to things properly and not screw them up, that you had to test everything. Like, I didn't realize just how difficult it was going to be. And that was the beginning of my journey online. So if I had to start over today, whatever direction I decided to go, whether it was another podcast or I decided I wanted to drop shipping or start an e-commerce site or whatever it is, right? If I had to start over today, I would focus all of my attention at first on bridging the knowledge gap, because that gap is what was the difference between that blog working and that blog not working. There are plenty of examples from back then of people starting blogs about video games and killing it using the same methods. They did all the same articles, they did all the same affiliate links, and they did super, super well. What was the difference? I didn't know what I was doing. They did know what they were doing. That knowledge gap is what made the difference. So whatever it is that you are trying to do right now, whether it's online or offline, you first need to recognize there's a lot that I don't know here. There's a lot that I don't know here. And you need to spend the time researching and studying and figuring it out. There is a knowledge gap that will hold you back. And until you are able to cross that, you will never be able to actually do this thing that you're trying to do, whether that is a business or moving up in your career or whatever it is. You need to learn first. So that's the first big thing I would spend my time on if I had to start over tomorrow or today or whenever it is. If poof, everything vanished, I had to start over from scratch, I'd focus on whatever direction I was going in, bridge the knowledge gap. Now, the second thing that I would do, once I felt a little comfortable, once I felt like I knew what I was doing, I was moving a little bit, is I would focus on gaining the reps. Now, this is a term that I've been using lately. I don't mean going to the gym, obviously. What I mean is getting the practice in, trying things, failing at it. Because no matter how much you know, when you actually try to apply things, it's going to be very different. Things just don't tend to work how they should in theory. Life is always more complicated. Business and the things you're trying to do is always more complicated. And so things are going to get thrown at you. And until you experience those things, you won't know how to respond to them. You won't know how to deal with them. So the only way you get that experience is, guess what? To experience it, to do that thing. You can have somebody tell you what's going to happen until you're blue in the face, but until you do it, you aren't going to know how to react to it. You aren't going to know how to manage that thing. So once I've got a little bit of the knowledge, once I feel like, okay, I know enough to start moving, I would focus on getting the reps in. Now let's give a real example here, right? So let's say tomorrow this podcast is gone. Tomorrow all my content is gone. And I have to start over from scratch. And I'm starting, let's say, a consulting business, right? I want to consult with companies on how to, install their widgets better, whatever that is. Okay. So first, I would need to learn everything about the types of companies that I'm working with. I would need to learn about how to sell to corporations and what is required to close those deals. I'd need to learn about the different names of people in those companies and what their titles are. I would need to learn about what challenges they're struggling with. I would need to learn about how to be a better consultant. I would need to learn how to track results for my customers, how to deliver the product well, how to charge them. Like, I would need to learn all of these things that seem basic but are vital to actually operating this business. So once I felt like I knew enough to start something, let's say I read a paragraph that said, hey, you can land your first customer by emailing them. Okay, cool. I've got now a little bit of information, not enough. I'm sure not enough, but a little bit, something I can start with. And okay, I'm going to take action now. I'm going to send out an email to 50 companies. I'm going to make a list of 50 companies and send out an email and say, hey, I'm Gregg. I can help you. I just lost my business yesterday, but I can help you with whatever you do. And that's it. I would Get the reps in, start the process, do the thing, and get punched in the face. And know that you're going to get punched in the face. But guess what? It's okay, because you're here to get punched in the face. You're trying to get punched in the face. That's how you build up the scars. That's how you get the experience and understand what it is you did wrong, what it is you did right, so that you can improve. And I've been saying this thing a lot lately. Competence is confidence. So many of you are right now trying to build a business, or you're trying to accomplish a particular goal, whatever that thing is. You're trying to do something that is different than anything you've ever done. And you don't feel confident. Why? Because you're not good at it yet. Because you don't know what you're doing. Because you feel like you're a failure. You feel like you have no idea what is going on. And you don't. You should feel that way. The way you gain confidence is to gain competence. It's to try things and get the battle scars, get punched in the face enough times so that you know not to do that thing again. And then all of a sudden, now you know how to maneuver things. You know how to make it work. You know how to schedule your day. You know how to find the right people. You know how to deal with it. And now you feel more confident. You feel a little bit better about what you're doing. Competence is confidence. The way you gain confidence is to gain competence. The only way you gain competence is to get the reps in. So that's the second thing that I would focus on, is getting those reps in. Now, when we get back, we're going to look at the last two pieces of this puzzle, the things that I would focus on if I had to start over tomorrow. So stick around for that. We all know how important our mental health is when trying to make big changes in our lives. Simply put, without taking care of our mental and emotional health, we won't be able to take the tiny leaps we need in order to move forward. That's why today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest counseling service. It's 100% online and has already helped 759,000 people just like you. With BetterHelp, you can get the support you need easily. Simply make an account, answer a few questions to be matched with the perfect counselor, and you're good to go. You can speak with your counselor in whatever way you want, via text, chat, phone, or video sessions. And you can get the help you need exactly when you need it by messaging your counselor anytime, anywhere, or scheduling a live session at a time that's convenient for you. Every counselor is licensed, professional, and thoroughly vetted, so you can breathe easy knowing that you'll get the help you need. Take control of your mental health in 2020 by going to www.betterhelp.com/tinyleaps. That's www.betterhelp.com/tinyleaps. When you sign up today, you'll get 10% off your first month. So head over to www.betterhelp.com/tinyleaps and get started. All right, so the third thing I would focus on if I had to start over today, if everything disappeared and I was starting over from scratch. Now, this one's a little bit more specifically towards people trying to build businesses, people trying to go solo, people that maybe are already solo. What I would do if I had to start over today is keep my day job. Now, I know that's a little different than the advice you probably hear all over the place online, right? Like, we always talk about how if you find your passion, you should jump ship and build the parachute on the way down. Now, as we know, that is not great advice. Building the parachute on the way down is actually the fastest way to find yourself eating rocks and just not having a great time in life. So what I would do, and I actually did this to some extent, and I'll explain that in a second, but if I were starting something from scratch today and had none of the other things, I didn't have the knowledge gap figured out, I didn't quite know exactly what I was doing, I didn't have the reps in, I would keep my day job. You're going to have to make sacrifices somewhere, but it doesn't have to be in your primary source of income. Now, when I started this podcast, it was 2016, January 1st, 2016. I had just left my full-time job for the second time. So there was actually a time right before that where I left trying to... Actually, I didn't even have a plan. That first time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want a job. And so I left. I was working at a small company in New York City. And about 6 weeks later, maybe even earlier, I was immediately back there working again full time at the same company. It was a little bit embarrassing. So save yourself the embarrassment and don't do that. But I then stayed at that job for just under a year, I believe, or maybe it was 6 months. I can't totally remember. This was 6 years ago now. And what ended up happening was I left at the end of 2015. December 2015 was my last day there, whatever date in December. I think it was the 12th or 13th. And as of January 1st, 2016, I was fully self-employed. Now, the goal was to build a freelance web design business, right? That was the one thing I'd learned from the first time was I'm not going to jump ship again until I have the idea, until I know what it is I want to do, right? There's no such thing as jumping ship and then figuring it out. Like that's just not the way you should go about it, in my opinion. So I jumped ship. I had this idea. I'm going to build a freelance web design business. And I decided on a whim to start this podcast. Now, I didn't have a day job when I started this podcast, and that allowed me to do a lot of things that would have been more difficult if I did have a day job. It wouldn't have been impossible, but it would have been more difficult. With that said, though, I was actively trying to build this freelance business. I did have clients. I did put in the work to get more clients. And so in a sense, that was my day job. The podcast wasn't making me anything. In fact, I don't think it really made me anything for the first 3 years. So maybe even 3.5 years. So what I would recommend to you, because what ended up happening is at the end of 2016, I ran out of money. My business wasn't working. My freelance business was not working. I was doing this podcast. It was doing extremely well. A lot of you guys started listening in 2016, but I wasn't making anything from it. And I was doing this thing daily for free. So I needed another full-time job. And I took a job that I wasn't super happy about. I spent a lot of time at the end of that year feeling depressed and down and frustrated at myself and angry and all of the things that come with feeling like you are a failure. And but I kept doing it. I kept doing this show. I kept doing all of the things around this show and trying to find a way back out, a way to make this work. And then I took another job after that. That was a good opportunity that I jumped ship from that job to this other job, spent about a year there. And then finally my contract ended and I just decided, okay, it's time to make this work, this being the podcast. So in a way, I had multiple day jobs while building this. I didn't really jump ship for the last time until I was kind of forced to, until it didn't make sense to try and find another job because there was so much opportunity there in front of me. And unless you're at that point where there are things you could literally just reach out and grab and you would be right there, I would recommend keeping your day job, keep that sustainability, keep the ability to not drive yourself insane. Because one of the things they don't talk about when you're building a business is that everything stops being fun. It's not even about, the thing you love, you don't love. Everything stops being fun. It seeps into every part of your life. It takes over your every thought. Because if it doesn't, if you don't think about it constantly, if you aren't constantly solving the problems related to your business, you will starve. You will not be able to pay rent. You will not be able to do the things that you need to do. No one's going to come up to your door and say, hey, here's a check. It's just not going to happen. You have to find that money. And it's really difficult to do something you love and something you care about and actually feel like you love it, feel like you care about it, when in the back of your head, you're thinking, I don't know where rent is coming from. I don't know where groceries is coming from. That's a real thing. So keep your day job. That's the third big thing I would focus on if I had to start over tomorrow. I don't currently have a day job, so I would go get one and then keep it while building whatever it is I'm building, figuring out the knowledge gap, figuring out the getting the reps in. And then finally, the fourth thing that I would do if I had to start over tomorrow, and this is going to sound a little counterintuitive or counterproductive, one of those two. It's going to sound counter to what I was just saying, but at some point, when it feels like you are there, when it feels like you might be there, you've got to jump. You've got to, you have to make that leap. You have to take that moment and decide, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Now, I can't tell you when that moment is. I can't tell you how you should do it. I can't tell you if you should have a specific amount of savings. Like, I can't tell you any of those things. You know your life better than I could ever, or anyone else. So you've got to make that decision for you. You've got to know what your risk tolerance is, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to trade. But at some point, you've got to jump. Now, I would recommend spending a significant amount of time bridging the knowledge gap. You don't want to jump and still be an amateur. You don't want to jump ship and not know how to build a parachute. Like, that's a terrible idea. So bridge the knowledge gap first. Get the reps in first. Do that in a safe environment, one where your day job supports you so that you don't have to stress about it. You can just get punched in the face. You can be more aggressive. You can gain the experience faster because your livelihood isn't depending on it. But at some point, you've got to jump. So that's what I would focus on if I had to start over today. If I was building a business from scratch today and I had lost everything that I've built up to now, I would focus on bridging the knowledge gap. I'd focus on getting the reps in. I would focus on keeping my day job, keeping some kind of main revenue stream coming in. And I would focus on figuring out when the right moment is, but jumping at some point. Hope this has been helpful to you. If you haven't already, be sure to take the survey. Head over to www.tinyleaps.fm/survey. That is the best way to tell me what you want to hear this year. That's the best way to share your thoughts with me so that I can make better content for you, so that I can make better brand deals for you, and I can do more things to help you with the problems that you are facing. I've been Gregg Clunis. Be sure to click subscribe wherever you are consuming this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Leave a comment or a rating and a review. Just let me know what your thoughts are. And remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.